Welcome to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP. I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Lenard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and an occasional guest type podcast. Really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show! Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Constitutionalist Politics Podcast. Joining me today is Terri Brinston. We met at a Miss Liz tea time. Her basically farewell, her leaving her podcast behind at least for a while. And a lot of Miss Liz's guests, we all came together for kind of a farewell episode, and Terri and I met each other there. So figured we'd have a discussion too. Welcome to the toe. I cannot talk today. Welcome to the show, Terri.
Thank you so much for having me. I look forward to speaking with you today.
And you're associated with My School Nurse program and nursing wellness. I can't talk. Nursing Wellness Group Foundation. Yes.
Nurturing Wellness Group Foundation.
What did I say?
Nursing. Okay.
We probably should stop this, throw it all out, and start over again. But I'm not going to do that. It's like I say to my audience, you get what you get with me. I'm not here hiding anything. Warts and all. Here it is.
So they appreciate it.
Yeah. So first, I guess, the proverbial background information, right? Where were you born and raised and all that kind of stuff? Where are you now?
Okay. All right. So I grew up in Michigan. So I've been here all my life. So I grew up in Inkster, Michigan, and I went to Robichaud High School in Dearborn Heights. And so that's been my upbringing, and my my roots are from there. I currently live in Romulus, Michigan, and definitely love my community. And so I've been working as a nurse and a teacher for over 26 years. So I'm a pediatric nurse, and I know people, when I see I'm a nurse and a teacher, pediatric nurse. So I work with young people in a high school setting, and I help them to get connected to the medical field. So I teach them introduction to the medical field and basic information that they need. So we're trying to build up our healthcare system because I need to retire soon. And so I get us some, get us some retirement, get some people working. And I'm a pediatric nurse, like I said, and a business owner. I'm busy. I get really bored real quick. So I got a lot going on. So I'm the CEO of the Nurturing Wellness Group Foundation, which is a nonprofit. We work with young people, young adults who are struggling with thriving. We also work with schools, and we help them to connect them to different resources, mental health resources, so that they can be productive citizens. And so, and I also work for schools, and I help them to get their policies and procedures. So I'm so busy. But one of the things I do is that youth are in the center of my mission. And everything that I do has a direct impact to helping young people to thrive, to making sure that they have a safe environment in our school systems. And so that's who I am.
That sounds good. And for those who don't know, Romulus is where Detroit Metro Airport is. There is a city airport in the Detroit city limits, but the main airport is actually downriver.
in my
So,
backyard.
yeah, you enjoy all that plane noise going
You
on
know
all the
what?
time?
I don't hear the plane noise. They don't fly over my house, thank goodness. But yeah, it's very convenient. So if you ever travel or leave out, everybody calls me to pick them up at the airport, and they'll park their car at my house. So that makes it fun. I get to see people when they're leaving and coming back. So
Hmm. So, yeah, what noise you would normally get there, you've kind of acclimated to it and you don't even really pay any attention to it.
no, they don't fly over my house. They come in from another direction, so they don't really. When we hear a plane flying over, it's very it's not a normal occurrence. When I lived in Inkster, we heard it all the time,
You
but here
were
I don't hear anything. So
you were
I'm
on one of the main runway kind of main paths flies
right.
right over Inkster.
There
Yes.
you go. Right. So that was not good, but yeah, where I'm at now, I'm closer to the airport, but I don't hear anything. So that's
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
I often hear that a lot of people who like railroad tracks are
Yeah.
ways from me. I hear trains every once in a while, but not very much. But people with like apartments right on the tracks, a lot
Right.
of times they'll say, I never pay any attention to them, never
Right.
hear them. It's like their hearing has
Right.
adjusted to the point where it like weeds that out.
Absolutely. Yeah. I that's funny you say that because working in the school system, I never hear the bells. And it's like the kids are get up and they're like on their way out the class and they're like, I'm like, where are you going? They're like, Miss Princeton, the bell just rang. So I was like, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, that same kind of
So,
thing, right? Selective hearing, I
there you
guess.
go. There you go.
Yeah, and I keep wanting to change the nurturing to nourishing.
Nurture.
that's that's where the hang up with me is right now. It's like, no, you don't have anything to do with the lunch program.
No. No.
That kids almost always are complaining about.
All the time. All the
Yeah.
time.
I did a show. I don't remember the guest name now offhand, but we did go into that. It's like a pizza burger thing every day isn't good, but like when Michelle Obama give her an A+ for intention,
Mhm.
but in results she gets an F because kids were just, if they're throwing it out every day and they're
Mhm.
getting nothing whatsoever in them because they refuse to eat what you insist they got to eat,
Mhm.
uh, that's not good either, right? So,
That's funny you say that because I've been working in education for a while and I've seen that transition. And now, no lie, during that time, I can't remember the name of the program that she implemented, but during that time when Michelle Obama implemented, the program where we had to really look at the nutritional impact and the vending machines and all of that stuff, I promise you, we saw a difference in the weight and the energy level of our students. At me as a teacher, I saw the difference. And, they drank more water because the vending machines had, it didn't have pop or anything like that in it, but it did have a lot of water in it. And so, healthier choices as far as their snacks. So I did see a difference in the energy level and the weight. I can say that. Yeah.
and now we're back to everybody needs Ozempic because everybody's obese again.
We can't win for losing, huh?
Right. Everything
Absolutely.
seems to cycle. It's
Yeah.
that pendulum swing. We go way overboard one way, then we go way overboard back the other way, and it, it
Can't win for, yeah, it's always something. And just hold your breath it'll come right back around again, and
Right.
we tried something different, and now we doing something else. Yeah, it becomes a little discouraging, absolutely, but yeah.
Yeah. And the biggest problem with different programs is that when you try to make everything a one size fits all in
Yeah.
a Martin Luther King Jr. content of character individualism society,
Mhm.
it doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, everything is not for everybody. You definitely have to look and see what what works for that particular community or what works for that particular school. That's what I do with my school nurse is we go into the school system and we look at their population. We look and see what types of medical issues are the children dealing with. And then we provide we call it a care plan for the school to kind of help to make sure that they are compliant with state and federal requirements for the school. So, for example, what percentage of schools do you think have school nurses? What do you think?
I would hope almost all of them would, but yeah, probably very few.
Yeah, probably like about 35% of schools have school nurses. And so a lot of people, I talk to a lot of parents and they're like, who sees your child when they get sick? And they'll say, oh, the nurse. And no, well, find out if your school has a nurse. A lot of times that role is being delegated to the secretary. And our secretaries are being worked just so hard. Now some schools, they have like a part-time nurse, or maybe they may have a nurse that comes over and reviews their charts and different things like that. But some schools, they don't have anything, right? And so what we do is we go into the school systems and we help them to make sure that they have the right policies in place. We make sure that they have the right training for their staff. And we also see if they need medical support, because you have a lot of kids. These kids get sick. We didn't get this sick. I don't remember, being in public school and, being sick all the time. Kids their bones are breaking. We see so many fractures and asthma and diabetes and allergic reactions. And so these young people are dealing
Goes
with,
back to our diets again. All these
absolutely
processed
all
foods,
the
and
processed foods and
I'm a big believer in everything in moderation, but the
right,
problem is
absolutely.
they're eating McDonald's every day. That's not healthy,
Right.
obviously.
Absolutely. That used to be a luxury for us. Now it's a luxury because it's so darn expensive. But, we are not eating right. And we have a lot of our kids are just dealing with so many medical issues. And then they're in school from what, 7 o'clock until 3. Things happen. They have asthma attacks. They have allergic reactions. They may be dealing with, the first time a child really recognizes that they have, or the parent recognizes that they have some type of disorder, they're usually at school. And so we have to get that support. And so what we do with My School Nurse is we provide that support for schools who don't have school nurses. So we bridge
Hmm.
that gap. And sometimes they may want to subcontract us to come in and be a nurse, or sometimes they just may want us to provide the training and make sure that they're compliant with state and federal laws so that they don't get in trouble. Right. So that's
Right.
that's what I do with that company. Yeah.
Well, you briefly mentioned mental health before, and
Uh-huh.
that's kind of really the road I want to go down now. It's like I was talking with someone else earlier today, right?
Uh-huh.
These, they're just, so how about socializing with people? They're so self isolated, it seems, even now, way outside of the Wuhan hysteria, where obviously during the lockdown phases, even when they don't have to be locked down, they almost self isolate, and that's not healthy.
No, it's not. And this is a major problem. And I don't think it's a new problem. I just think we've started to shine the light on it. There's definitely has escalated and gotten worse because of COVID. But it was a problem. We really never addressed our mental health, and I think that was one benefit of COVID, that it did shine a light on this issue. And so people are really paying attention to that. And the phone usage in our school system is horrible. You're right, they're addicted to their phones. And they believe that they can multitask and they can't, you know. So, but they believe that they can. And so it is a major problem, and I truly believe, and to further uh, address that issue is a lot of our schools don't have the resource to support the mental health of our young people, right? So we don't have enough counselors, we don't have enough social workers, you know, and so it really is a horrible issue, and that's another thing what we do through the Nurturing Wellness Group Foundation. We subcontract counselors and social workers, and we everything that's dealing with medical connection, like a wraparound support services for our youth. But first, we get in there to see what they need, because some schools may not need it, and because we know that it's not one size fit all. So we go in there and we evaluate and see, will your kids benefit from having mental health support through counselors and setting policies in place? We look at, okay, we look at these test scores, and it's like, okay, well, one thing we can do is ban the phones in the school, make them turn them off, while you're sitting in class, let's turn our phones off. And so, for a while there, we couldn't say, teachers could not take the phones from the students. They had to have their phones. But
Well, that to
now,
me is
mm,
the lazy parenting, right?
mm,
If way back when we
uh-huh,
used to, if we were sick or whatever, if there was a deal where you needed something for whatever reason, a parent could call into the school and the school could send someone to the schoolroom, and right, there isn't a need to have these literally chained around their neck 24/7. If they're sick, they go to the office. They used to be these things called payphones, right? And we all managed to seem to work okay without that tether 24/7 before. But uh, the technology has become like a crutch.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely agree with you 100%. We are the fast food generation. We want everything right now, right? And so with that said, we got to have things instantaneously. And so, when I want my son or I want my daughter, it's much easier for me to send them a text because I know they got their phone on their lap, regardless of they're in the classroom. I just think that I don't want to throw it on all just parents. I just think our society has embraced this quick, fast fix, and we just gravitate to it. I don't think we really realize the impact that it has having that phone. It's like I can't
Mm,
tell you how many times I'm repeating myself, or I just said something and someone will raise their hand and ask me the exact question that I just answered. And it's like it's because you're distracted. And so
yes.
it's a big issue, and it needs to be addressed. And even with AI coming on the scene as well, you're
Going to
gonna
get worse.
it's going
Yeah.
to get worse because, although there's many, many benefits for AI, and I talk to my friends about this all the time. Um, yes, it's very beneficial for people like you. You've lived your life, you have experiences, and you can put your questions in there with some life experiences connected to it. But can you imagine if you haven't had any life experiences And so you have, I don't know, it's a crutch too. That's
Yeah.
something that's my soapbox.
Yeah. No, they have no life experience. There is
No.
no wisdom whatsoever having
No,
come with the age because they haven't aged
they
really
have.
at all yet. And uh, they're so bombarded by everything with it. And like I used to say as a former IT guy, so
Mhm.
I've seen this abuse get
Right.
worse and worse. And now not only is it that no no more than I can't get my thought together, let alone get my mouth to get it out. The brain and the mouth aren't cooperating today. But never before in the course of human history have we had access to so much truth and fact. But at the same time, never before in human history have we had so much access to delusion
Hmm.
and what people prefer. They feed themselves to feed their delusion rather than be truth seekers. And that becomes a problem. This my truth idiocy. No, facts are facts, evidence is evidence, reality is reality. Delusion is a mental health problem.
Good point. Good point. Everybody has their own truth. So it's like,
Now, yeah,
when if everybody has their own truth, then what's true? So yeah, we're
exactly.
in that time, and that is definitely a challenge, I'm sure, especially with the young adults that my company works with, because when everybody has their truth, it's very difficult to set boundaries. It's very difficult to understand what integrity is, because integrity is what I think it is. It's not doing the right thing when no one is watching, and being a person of your word. And so it definitely is a struggle, I'm sure, for the parents out there, because
Yeah.
have so many blurred lines in our society, for
We've
sure.
almost, like I say, the pendulum swings, right?
Mhm.
Like in the 60s, we had the hippie, if it feels good, do it. That was kind of almost a my truth time, too. But
Correct.
that gave way to the Jesus revolution because then people say, well, if everything is relative,
Mhm.
there are no values and principles.
Mhm.
Everybody's questions on morality is fluid. There's no basis in any commonality of morality, it seems, again now.
Right.
Again, we're back to if it feels good, hey, it's my truth. Uh,
Mhm.
to heck with reality.
Right. And that's very interesting that you said that, because one of the projects a few of my students, young people that I work with, they came up with is the impact of decentralization, that we're so desensitized by these images, and by war and hunger and shootings and different things like that, and
Again, because 24/7, it's right there at the fingertips. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's not just the nightly news seeing
Right,
it anymore,
right,
right?
right, absolutely. And it has a major impact. I mean, people don't realize that it actually restructures your brain. There's some restructuring going down, happening to your brain and your ability to truly your fight and flight response. So there's some, it plays a major part in how our society is developing and our brain health. And we just think, well, we see these things, you think about, like, even school shootings, when school shootings, you first started to see it in the news, and everybody would just ruin your day, and you're just everybody's upset. Now it's like, oh, there was another school shooting. It's on the 20th page in the newspaper, no longer on the first page. And we may hear a little, see the little ribbon at the bottom of the news saying that this shooting occurred. It's and this is our society becoming desensitized to these major issues in our community. Yeah. So yeah,
And
this is one of the things, yeah, that
I'm
I
going to go
deal
back
with.
to lazy parenting again, too, while
Yeah.
allowing these kids to be consumed in
Mhm.
these first person player video games with theft and death and destruction. And right again, the desensitization of any commonality of acceptance of norms of like I talk about Penn and Teller, the
Mhm.
magician comedian group
Mhm.
team. He's a famous devout atheist.
Mhm.
And a lot of atheists generally are anti religious, even though I dare say it takes more of a belief that everything somehow miraculously came out of nothing than it does that there is a creator to things. So
Mhm.
I dare say, sorry, it's a faith. Your atheism is every bit of faith as any other religion, but he isn't one of those anti-religious types. And he understands and says, I don't care where the law comes down from, whether it be morality from the Bible. No, it's just being a good citizen, a member of society, that I don't get to steal your stuff. You don't get to steal my stuff, right?
Mhm.
I don't get to murder whomever I choose. And if somebody so chooses, they don't just get to decide, they get to murder me. These
Mhm.
are good things, regardless of the how and the where we derive them as to a structured, workable society. And we're losing a lot of that.
Well, I mean, to your point, it's because there's no foundation to where those things come from. I'm a Christian, and so I believe that those foundational things have to come from somewhere. It can't we can't pick and choose, what's good and what's bad, because then that becomes, okay, it's my opinion, it's what I feel that's right or wrong. And so that's one of the things that I love to teach my young people is that you have to have integrity. If you have a belief system, if you believe in Christ, if you believe in God and the Bible, then that's the foundation of your good. It's not based on what the world says it's good, it's based on what God says it's good. And so, and that's I don't know if we want to go there, but that's one of the things that, as what's good,
Right.
what are we measuring ourselves to,
Yeah, and that's I
so
think why atheism become more and more attractive again with the if it feels good society and my own truth. And I don't want anyone or anything to potentially be my boss, right? They are their own God, and whatever they want to go goes.
right, right. And yeah, and when we as a society don't know where the good is or the foundation is, it's just like, we're building our house on sinking sand. It's not going to sustain when we do that. And so we have to have a foundation. And that's one of the things that we do with our Nurturing Wellness Group Foundation is we deal with that, setting that foundation, helping them understand, well, what is your core? What is your foundation? It cannot be whatever feels good because it's not
And that
sustainable.
that can vary from 1 minute to the next.
Absolutely,
That's
right. When the wind blows, this is what I'm doing. And when the wind stops, this is what I'm doing. And so, that's not sustainable. And this is why, I mean, yeah, I enjoy playing video games, but to what end? You know what I'm saying?
as a temporary escape, because we
Right.
do all need occasional breaks from
Absolutely.
reality. That's great. But you touched on the key word there, sustainable. We are
Right.
going to completely destroy everything and on this planet. Uh,
Mhm.
but yet, at the same time, in a way, it's off the deep end the other way, that there is planet worship and survival of the planet that's been here long before we were here and will be here long after we're gone, but
Mhm.
somehow putting Bambi and Thumper over human life. There's
Mhm.
no valuing there. It's like with forest management and the refusal to do it. I was on a show just the other day. You know
Mhm.
what upsets Bambi and Thumper more than you going in and clearing a little brush and creating fire breaks so we can have less acreage burning? It's
Mhm.
being burnt to a crisp by a fire you allowed happen because you didn't want to upset Bambi, but instead you killed him.
Mhm.
Way to go, climate worshiper.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
so I it's again the my truth, but because I feel so good about that I'm protecting Bambi and Thumper, but the reality, if you use logic and reason and
Mhm.
thought rather than feelings, you recognize I'm really putting them in more harm's way than I am in protecting them. But
Mhm.
it's again that instant gratification, but my feelings thing.
Mhm. Yeah, I hear you. Definitely. That's definitely not my area of expertise. But I do say that, we do have things in place. There's best practice. There's things that has been tested and proven. And, sometimes we just, I don't know, we ignore good common sense, you know?
Oh,
And so, and, everything, there's always a better way of doing things. And that's one thing that I do when I work with schools. It is like, okay, I'm not reinventing the wheel. We know what works and we know what doesn't work. What's the definition of insanity of doing the same thing over and over and expecting a better, a better
yeah.
result. So there's resources, there's studies, there's things that we know as a society and as a community, but we sometimes, out of whatever, we ignore those things.
In the name of wanting to avoid abuse,
Right, right.
we ignore the spare the rod, spoil the child, lifelong human nature understanding. You can't discipline a child, it seems, anymore in school for any reason. And we have so many people out of control because of it, because they have no boundaries. Because unfortunately, it is indeed true. Some people go overboard the other way and get abusive.
Right, right,
So there's
absolutely.
not always really a 100% right or wrong. We're
Mhm.
human, we're going to make mistakes, but it bothers me when there are some who just refuse to want to bother to try. It's like, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, as long as I show up and collect my paycheck,
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I think that sometimes the reality of the problems becomes so humongous that it's very, consuming to think that, oh, this problem is so big. I don't even want to attempt to address it. But, if we really recognize that how do you eat, what is it, an elephant eating, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, and I think with that, our society has really lost their, um, we don't have resilience. It's very difficult for us to bounce back when we have a struggle or we fail. We want that instant gratification and we've lost our ability to really have that no quit in us. You know what I'm saying? We just like, ah, it didn't work. So hey, let's go on to something different. We've lost that as a society. And that's, and that's why I hate to, blame the parents, because we've lost it because we've made very bad decisions. And
Yeah.
so we're at that state right now where it's like, okay, we need to start making better decisions. And how do you make a better decision is to be grounded in a better foundation. And
And
that's
the
that's my
bottom
opinion.
line to me is that we continue, and that's where our Christian faith helps and comes in. We are to want to be our brother's keeper. We
Right.
are to care for one another. And we seemingly go on from far too many people saying, if at first you don't succeed, try again, because I care and I want to make a difference, to, if first you don't succeed, give up.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. And that's part of that, you know, the, when you really look, when we really, settle down and look at society, there's a lot of great people in this world, but we never really focus on it. We
Oh, the
turn on the
bad
news,
the
yeah,
bad apples get all the press, it
get all of the
seems.
play. And so when you think about, there's so much harm that, happens when we don't showcase the good people in our society. You know what I'm saying? Giving and caring and so it really, this is what we need to do as parents. If I can give any advice for our parents, is we need to show our children how to be citizens. We need to care. We need to take them to food pantries. We need them to volunteer. We need them to see a world other than their own so that they can have more gratitude for the things that they have.
Oh,
Having
and there's a major lack of that,
oh,
and in this a nation of abundance, we've
yeah,
said it several. What do I get, and why didn't I get it yesterday? Right? I
right.
don't want it now. Why didn't I get it yesterday? Rather than any graciousness, any gratefulness for the abundance we've got. No, it's I demand and expect and entitled to
Yeah.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's I think this is my opinion, but I think that if we as a society, not only as parents, but neighbors, people in our community, when you see, I give an example, my neighbor is just amazing. our My husband and I, we work a lot, and so a lot of times we're not home on trash day, and but when we pull in our driveway, our trash can is in by our house. He recognizes our schedule, and he'll come and help us with the yard. We have
And
kids that
that's
come up to
such
call.
a
It's just,
little thing.
oh,
But,
yeah,
and that's part of the problem here is too, we're so used to the grandiose, we
right,
lose sight of all those little things
right.
that can make such a big difference. Now, you being in Michigan also like me, so
uh,
you're used to Windsor, Ontario, Canada. So I know you probably remember the artist Anne Murray, the
yes,
singer,
yes,
right?
uh-huh,
Do you
uh-huh.
remember her song? We could all use a little good news today. I
Mhm,
I
mhm,
I think it's time. If you've never heard that song,
mhm,
maybe
mhm.
go to YouTube after this and look up Anne Murray could use a little good news, because indeed we are so busy dwelling on negatives
Right.
that it's poisoning our own minds, hearts, and souls.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that self-care, we're all seeking that self-care, those manicures and going for a walk and eating well. You need to add being kind, having a spirit of gratitude, doing something for your neighbor, volunteering, being a neighbor. Getting to, it amazes me when I grew up, and I'm sure you're the same way. I knew everybody on my street. I knew, and they used to tell me to stop running or stop, they could chastise me as much as my parents did. But now it's like you ask people, where do you live or who lives on your street? And it's like they have no idea. That
Because we're all, again,
Mhm.
isolated in
Yeah,
our own
yeah,
little kingdoms and fiefdoms. And yeah,
absolutely.
it's a shame. Uh,
Yeah. And so it happened before the cell phone, you know what I'm saying? But it definitely escalated after that. And so I think the it's so easy to blame parents. But the problem is so much bigger.
yeah, and you
It's,
don't have
it's
to
just
be
so much bigger.
religious, even though this is
Mhm.
obviously a Christian based show.
Right.
You don't, like Penn, you don't have to be religious to understand the concept of karma,
Right.
right? If
Right.
you wonder why you're always getting negative back,
Mhm.
look yourself in the mirror. Are you putting good out in the world? You put out good, you'll get some good back. But if you're negative Nelly all the time,
Mhm.
why are you surprised that you're so down in the dumps all the time? Because you're negative and you're surrounded by other like negative people.
Right. One truth with that, I did an exercise with some of the kids that I work with, and I had them to write down, think about one person that they're just so grateful for. It could be anything. Maybe, they did something for you, or they just played a major role, or they were just nice to you. And I had them to kind of write down what they did and, who that person was, and let them, spend a lot of time on just really getting connected with what this person did for them. And then I said, okay, you got your person, you wrote it down. Then I said, okay, call that person and read that letter, read what you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterward, we kind of before we did it, I asked them, well, and I got this idea from one of like a show. I can't remember the project that I was watching, so I don't want to take all the credit for it. But anyway, and so we measured their mood before they did it, the activity. And then we measured their mood after they made that phone call. And so we think as a society, we think that doing good is only going to benefit the other person, and it doesn't. It benefits you. Doing good and serving other people, and like you were saying, if you're being negative all the time and your
Yeah.
negative is coming towards you,
For
when
your
you
own mental health, right?
yes, yes,
You are going to get
absolutely,
back what you're projecting. And if you
absolutely,
want positive for yourself, put
right.
some positive out there. All right. Well, I like to joke all the time too, right? Things are always so serious. We got to keep a sense of humor. So
Mhm.
I'm joking here. You were such a horrible guest. I don't know why anyone would want to get a hold of you, but it's a joke, people. It's a joke. Just playing. And we lighten up, please? But
Right.
indeed, do you have a website where people can reach out to you?
Sure. You could reach me at myschoolnurse.co, and that is for my business where I work with schools. You can also reach me at terribrinston.co, .com, I'm sorry, terribrinston.com. And that's my personal website. I'm a speaker, I'm an author, and so I like to, speak at
Yeah,
different companies and
I
things
was
like
going
that.
to wrap it up. That's usually the wrap up question, but yeah, let's at least mention a couple of your books.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? I've written several books, but one of the books that I would like to highlight is Grateful for the Journey, Surviving COVID-19. I was a victim of COVID-19. And so I wrote actually, I'll just really quick, I'll tell you this quick story. I was on a ventilator and I was in the hospital for a month. And so I lost a lot of my memory. And so when I
Oh,
came home, of course, I was, struggling with figuring out my life. And my counselor had me to journal. And through that process, um, my husband told me to have it published. And so this is the publication of me rediscovering
yeah.
myself
So you
after
were
COVID.
definitely one of the ones who really got hit by, like, I had the Wuhan hysteria four
Okay.
different times.
Oh,
Ivermectin, HCQS,
uh-huh.
even though I have immune problems,
Okay.
they got me over it in like a couple weeks time, whereas like others with healthy bodies,
Right.
ivermectin, and they were over it in like 3-4 days. Took me a
Right.
couple weeks, uh, but I do know others indeed, and with the jabs, the
Hmm.
side effects. I know someone who has myocarditis now. Never had any issues before,
Right.
has that now. I
Mhm.
do know Lisa Ewald, a fellow nurse here
Mhm.
in the Downriver area,
Mhm.
had uh, had asthma issues. So
Mhm.
she had the comorbidity thing. And
Right.
indeed, when it hit her hard and it
Mhm. Mhm.
killed her. Yeah, it wasn't really the disease, it was the
Complicated.
complications,
Yeah.
the asthma complicate the Wuhan complicating the asthma to a point where she literally drowned in her own fluids,
Wow.
and I know another person, William Hartman, also.
Mhm.
He started on ivermectin, was getting better. The hospital said, nope, we refuse to give that. We have to give whatever else, not even going to mention the drug. They put him on that, continued decline, on ventilator, died.
Yeah.
Whereas other medications were working for him, because even though we all share a lot of similar DNA, each
Mhm.
patient can react differently to
Mhm.
different things, different medications, right? It's why there are so many different cold, for a very simple analogy concept, right? So many varieties of those medications. What may work for one isn't
Mhm.
guaranteed to work for the other, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, we have just my heart goes out to all the people who lost loved ones during that time. I got COVID in the very beginning, like in May. No, I'm sorry, in March, at the very beginning. So anyway, so yeah, check out my book. You can reach me, terribrinston.com, and
Yeah, they can
this is,
live it
uh-huh.
all how you lived it through your book. That's the wonders of books.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All
Well,
right.
thank you
Well,
so much for having me. I appreciate
thank
it.
you,
Good
Terri, for
conversation.
coming by. Uh, like I say, I never script shows, and I never quite imagined we'd go all the areas we did. But I'm just that guy. Whatever rabbit hole opens, hey, dive head first.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. So I enjoy it myself.
All right. Take care. God bless,
All right.
Terri.
You as well. Take care. Bye-bye, guys.
Thank you for having tuned in for Constitutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help.